Are you guys the last ones in? Can you close the door for me? Thank you. Alright, so last chance to grab coats for those who already don't have one. Is over here. So if you think you need it. If you still think you're good, then we'll just start. So hey guys, my name is Ali. I will be the guide throughout the cave itself. But before we actually go inside, we gotta go over just a couple of things, mostly for safety. So first of all, the floor inside the cave itself is actually made out of ice. So it can be a little bit slippery. Not to worry though, we actually do have a pathway in the middle of the cave. And if you guys just stay on top of that, then you should be relatively fine. Now, the cave itself is quite rounded, and the ceiling can get low at points. So please just try to watch your head while you're in there. Now, if you guys are claustrophobic, or you just feel uncomfortable at any time, you can always let me know, and I will just take you out of the cave. So, just out of curiosity, is anybody here claustrophobic? Alright, then we should be fine. Now, last but not least, you obviously need to enter this cave at your own risk, because, well, we can't take any responsibility. You know how these things work. It's the usual stuff. So, are everybody good? Fantastic. So, just gather up. So, you're of course allowed to take pictures inside, and you're even allowed to touch the ice. Just go crazy, alright? So let's meet up in the first corner, just around there. So meeting point is the first corner in the corner there. Wow. I like the hair. Alright. Follow me. So, what we're actually standing inside right now is actually the first fully man-made ice cave in the world. So, just enjoy it while you're here. Now, the cave itself is roughly 100 meters long, and inside we got about 350 tons of snow. Now, all of this snow is actually brought in from Blaufjell, or the Blue Mountains. It's out of the mountains here nearby. They're roughly 30-minute drive from Reykjavík. Now, if you guys look very carefully into the walls themselves, you might actually notice some black lines. Now, all of these lines are actually volcanic ash from the famous volcanic eruption called Eyjafjallajökull. Now, does anybody here remember the volcanic eruption in Eyjafjallajökull?
10 years ago?
Close, 8 years ago, yeah. So, yeah, the volcanic eruption in Eyjafjallajökull happened in 2010. It was the one that stopped most air traffic, and a lot of people got stuck at airports in the meantime. There actually hasn't been more cancellation in air traffic since the Second World War, so it was quite a big deal at the time. Now, the volcanic eruption itself wasn't actually all that bad for us Icelanders, because we actually got so much free publicity out of this stunt. So, you know, we actually got insanely famous for it, and it's been one of the tourist capitals ever since. So it was like a blessing in disguise. It worked quite well in the end. Alright, so we're gonna move on just a little bit further. Yeah, and then we're gonna put you guys down over here. I'm gonna form like a circle.
Smells like French.
So, if you go through the small tunnels we actually have behind here, you will actually find some living creatures. Now, these creatures are actually called Glacier. Now, no need to be worried. These are obviously not real mice. It's just moss. So they are just plants. Now, these plants are usually found on top of glaciers. Yet sunlight is now, what actually makes this moss a little bit is because it actually has its own temperature.
Ist
So
der
the
durch?
glaciers themselves are usually 0 to 4 degrees, while the glacier ice themselves are 2 to 10 degrees. So they melt everything around them. That's how they get their water, and that's pretty much how they survive. Now, if you want to see this moss, you can actually go through the tunnels here. If you reach inside the holes in the walls, you're able to touch them, pick them up. Feel free to explore. So,
What? You want to go in?
Gaat de familie achteraf.
yeah, and it's a loop. You'll end up on the other side, so everybody can go.
Ga er allemaal in.
We komen daar achteruit, denk ik dan.
Have a munch. Zo laten zien. Weet het wel. Eitjes?
Wat je dat nou?
Oh, shorts.
Yeah.
Or is this okay?
Yeah, this is the shortest one. Right.
Naja, das ist ja nur ein Tester, ob ja.
Do you need to maintain this or does it just stay the same?
Here we kind of need to maintain it, but it's difficult due to all the people coming through. So you can actually see like the ice.
Aber ich meine,
here is
kostet ja auch nicht viel in
completely
Island hier das runter zu kühlen.
The main reason for it being not so clear is mostly like people come inside and breathe out.
Willst du vorgehen?
Set that sound. What we're standing in right now is actually called a crystal ice cave. And you usually find these caves out near the bottom.
Was ist das, was da drinne ist?
During the summer, the ice is always melting.
Ich hab das eben schon mal angefasst, aber
And it melts the ice. In the winter though, the caves actually manage to freeze over. And now they get very cold. And that is actually because they trap quite a lot of air inside.
You're welcome.
So I don't know if you can see it now, but if you look very carefully into the walls, you might actually be able to spot out some air bubbles like inside the ice. You can see it from here, but so if you would actually break this ice down into small cubes and then throw them in your drinks, you would actually hear the ice popping when the air bubbles actually release from it. Just keep in mind that one's not really recommended because glacier ice can be up to 1,000 years old. So there might actually be some old bacteria trapped somewhere inside there, and you don't really want to drink that. It all depends on how your strong your drink is, of course. You might kill the bacteria. Yeah. All right, so let's move on just a little bit further.
Wil je nog iets zo doen? Nee, kom maar voor.
So, what we're looking at down here is actually called a crevasse. No, it is, yeah. Now, a crevasse is just a crack that forms in the glaciers themselves. Now, these cracks usually form due to friction, basically when the glacier itself is moving in either different directions or simply at different speeds. Now, in nature, these cracks are usually several hundred meters long. They are about 20 meters wide and they can be up to 45 meters deep. So, if you happen to fall down one of these, bad news. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to actually get back up. But on the bright side, you will actually be frozen down there, so at least you'll be preserved. You know, you'll still look okay when they find you. So if we turn around and draw our attention to this bit over here, what we have here, this is actually called the ice time map. And this would actually happen if you would just take one layer out of the glacier Vatnajökull. Now, the glacier Vatnajökull is of course the biggest glacier here in Iceland, and it is actually the biggest one in Europe as well. Now, what we're looking at here at the top, this is actually volcanic ash from the volcano Grímsvötn. This one actually occurred in 2011. Underneath it, we find Eyjafjallajökull, that happened in 2010, of course. And then when we jump all the way down to the bottom, we actually find the volcanic eruption called Hekla. Now, the volcanic eruption in Hekla actually happened in the 1100s. And the only reason for that being the lowest layer of volcanic ash is simply just because all older ice has melted away by now. So like everything before the 1100s has gradually just gone into the land, and we can pretty much never find it. Now, this map actually works quite similar to just rings on a tree. You're always able to just count down the layers, and then you can compare them to the volcanic eruptions that happened during its time. Now, the biggest twist to the map though is actually the weight of the glacier itself. And that is simply because the glacier is actually very heavy, so it is always compressing the ice down. This makes the gaps in between less and less. So when you look down towards the bottom, you can see we have two volcanic eruptions with almost no space in between, even though in reality these two layers actually happened 100 years apart. And keep in mind, this one here is the gap between 1 year. So you can clearly see how compressed it is down there. Now, if you're ever lucky enough to go into one of these natural caves, you can actually spot out these volcanic eruptions quite clearly. And it's basically just the higher they go, the newer, and the lower they drop, the older. Right? So, let's move on a little bit. Here we get to the crossroads. Now you can choose right or left side. It doesn't matter what you choose, we'll end up at the same place. So like, don't overthink it.
Je kan allebei kanten op.
Okay, one, go.
Alright, you guys made it. Okay, we survived. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Alright, so last but not least, we actually find the Mulin. Now, the Mulin actually has the name Glacier Mill as well. And the reason for the name Glacier Mill is simply because water is always traveling through this in a circular motion. So the Mulins themselves work quite similar to just drains. They're pretty much just a pathway for surface water to get out of the glaciers and then into the rivers, the lakes, and the sea. Now, the deepest Mulin we actually have in the world is located in Greenland. Now, that one is roughly 4 kilometers deep. The deepest one we got here in Iceland is located in Vatnajökull, of course, and that one is only 1 kilometer. Now, keep in mind, these here are actually the main dangers on top of the glaciers. And the main reason for that being is because it actually snows on top of them. Now they're completely invisible from the surface, and if you actually happen to step on them, you're either gonna fall from the top then directly down to the bottom, or you might fall about 20-30 meters and then down a crack that forms underneath. So both those options are pretty bad options. So this is basically the reason why you always need a guide for glacier hiking, because you just go where the guide goes, unless he goes down, of course. Then I would definitely track back. So on that uplifting note, then let's end this tour. So if you guys want to go back and take more photos, feel free. If you have any questions, I can always help. But if you just want to escape the freezing cold, then the door is here to the left.
Ja, nochmal zurückgehen hier noch.
Thank you.
Voll geil hier, oder? Das hat sich ja wohl mal gelohnt.
Ja, sag ich ja.
Kann man auch noch reingehen.
Oh, hab ich mich erschrocken. Ja, das sind Lautsprecher.
Ja. Oh. Hier ist Dead End, würde ich mal sagen, ne? Hier geht's nicht weiter. Ich dachte schon, die hätten hier einen Whirlpool eingebaut, erst ich das hier so gesehen habe.
Oh ja, krass.
Aber das ist ja auch extra irgendwie so geschliffen, ne?
Ja, wahrscheinlich, weil auch alle anfassen, ne?
Meinst du, aber es grabbelt ja niemand da unten an. Ist dir kalt? Das mit der Vulkanische, das fand ich auch spannend hier, ne? Hm? Was ist denn?
It's not as but like this is the first artificial. This was actually made after London. Like we have an actual cave.
Oh, that sounds good.
And that one is actually like we made this
Aber das ist gar nicht mal so kalt, wie man jetzt vielleicht denkt. Eigentlich hier drin in so einer Eishöhle, ne?
Ja, wenn es draußen kalt ist, ist es meistens ja auch windig, ne?
Ja, aber das ist ja auch das Prinzip von so einem Iglo. Das ist ja auch nicht unbedingt mega kalt innen drin.
No, it should be open.
Ja, das wieder rausgehen. Willst du rausgehen? Immer Gletscherhöhe machen. Ja. Jetzt müssten die bald noch ein zweites, wie nennt sich das? Kraftwerk